call the Assembly Governmental Affairs and Rules Committee meeting of 6:15 at 4 p.m. to order. And Owen, would you please do a roll call?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Delegate Gasson?
Here.
Delegate Green?
Here.
Delegate Harder?
Here.
Delegate Harder?
I'm here.
All right. I do have Delegate Killian, I think, is going to be signing on in a moment, but you do have a couple of alternates here. Dean Oman?
Here.
Delegate O'Malley?
I've had a freeze up here. Okay, I'm back.
I do see Delegate Killian as well, and you've got Delegate Ty and Delegate Friesel, or Deputy Speaker Friesel here as alternates, Madam Speaker. So it looks like you've got 7 plus 2 for 9. So.
Okay.
Okay. So we have one item on the agenda today, and
Oh, I'm sorry. I should probably at least read the opening statements. I don't know that we have to, but better to be safe.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Clerk,
So
Fletcher.
pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts 2025, this virtual meeting of the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Governmental Affairs and Rules will be conducted via remote means only in accordance with applicable law. Members of the public will watch the meeting through live real-time broadcast at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County. A public participation guide and meeting documents are available in advance at www.capecod.gov. The County of Barnstable does not discriminate in the administration of its programs or activities on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or other categories protected by state and federal anti-discrimination laws and regulations. Reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities are available upon request. For more information or to file a complaint, please contact Justina Marchak, Barnstable County ADA Non-Discrimination Coordinator at jmarczak@capecod.gov. Call 508-375-6646 or visit www.capecod.gov. Members of the public may also watch the meeting remotely through Microsoft Teams, and that link is available at capecod.gov. Back to you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Fletcher. I would like to thank all of you for coming today at a short notice, and this should probably not be that long of a meeting, but it's become apparently clear as we have moved through subtle changes in the way that the committees and the Assembly is actually operating, that the way in which the Government Affairs and Rules Committee was set up was not meant to handle the kind of things that we have started to handle in that particular subcommittee, and we're trying to make it more even with the other committees, which have worked pretty well with the 5-2 format. And we had a couple of meetings just to talk about how that might configure, and a resolution was sent out, which I think you all saw before today. And so I'd like to hear what the members of the Government Affairs and Rules Committee feel. Anyone? Okay, Brian O'Malley? Delegate O'Malley? You're speaking.
All right. Okay. Got it. I'm having issues here today with technical. Okay. Yeah. My first reaction was that what this does is it moves us towards a gerontocracy, and I want to be careful about that. But in fact, I see the logic. And in fact, in this particular committee, something of a gerontocracy, or at least the committee being comprised of people who have the longest service on the Assembly, there's a real element of logic to that. In that the familiarity with the process. This committee is more about the process of the Assembly and how we manage ourselves and how we organize than any other has as its charge. And I think from that standpoint, I'm joking a little bit about the gerontocracy, but in fact, I think it makes good sense. And certainly from the concerns that Owen has so nicely articulated around quorum, and we're close to quorum when we have all of us present, and if anyone else from the Assembly is sitting in, it becomes a little squeezy. So I don't have any objection to making this change.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, I don't see a problem with this. I mean, it means I'll probably lose my full seat, but but it makes sense. Just, some committees don't even meet that much. Others are deeply involved, and I think just having people that have been here the longest who know what we're trying. Normally, when this committee meets, it's because we're trying to accomplish something that's been discussed for a long time. So I think it makes sense to have the people who have been discussing it for a long time be the ones to make the decision. So I'm fine with it.
Thank you, Delegate Harder. Delegate Gessen.
Yes, I think overall this is a good idea, but I do have a little bit of a hesitancy with it, and I hope we might be able to get some clarity from the speaker, maybe the deputy speaker and the leadership team on it, which is the fact that I do think, a 7-person committee is unruly. I think it makes sense shrink it in size. I think a committee that's really, government affairs and rules, which if it is actually focused on assembly procedure and the rules of our legislative body, having some of the more experienced delegates on there also totally makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, a number of a number of things have been referred to this committee, which is why it's been so utilized over the last several months, including the ordinance specifically on immigration policy. And before the meeting, I was trying to brush up on why it is that we have met so regularly. But there have been a number of policy-heavy proposals that have come in front of this committee, and I think that is totally fine, given the fact that right now this is a committee that has leadership on it, as well as committee chairs. And if we're going to have policy-heavy discussions, we might as well have those involved members of the assembly present. However, if we're going to move forward to this being, as Delegate O'Malley said, paraphrasing, a committee of older folks that have been around for a while, I think ceding oversight of those heavy policy ideas solely based on your tenure on the assembly is not necessarily fair. So I would like to say, I think I'm totally in favor of this. I think it's going to make the assembly run smoother, but I would just like some thoughts from the leadership team about, do you see us bringing, some of those more policy heavy issues to the policy based committees if we move forward with this proposal? For instance, sending oversight of the budget for the Cape Cod Commission, maybe to Natural Resources. Public Services also exists as a committee, and I know the chair pretty closely. Using those committees for policy heavy things rather than leaving policy heavy ideas to go to people just on the basis of their tenure. Thank you.
Do we have any other delegates? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Delegate Green. There you are.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did just raise my hand. I would agree with Delegate Gessen about the Cape Cod Commission budget review. I don't think that the Finance Committee is a place where that should be reviewed, and I was okay with the Government Affairs Committee reviewing it. But I do think it should. I've always maintained that it should have been in Natural Resources, and that's one of the reasons why I did ask for that chair, is because I think that it is not, it has, in my mind, the Cape Cod Commission has more to do with natural resources than it does with economic development. And I think that's the reason why it was established. So, that does bother me. The other thing that concerns me is some of the topics that this committee has reviewed wouldn't include the speaker. I understand the reasoning behind that, but I don't understand why you wouldn't have the same issues if it was the deputy speaker chairing it, because that deputy speaker is supposed to stand in to the speaker's role if the speaker is not available for one reason or another. So I think that for that reason, there could be the same kind of conflict with the deputy speaker being the chair. So I don't know if that's too far-fetched, but it is possible that that could be an issue at some point in time, and maybe we should talk about it sooner rather than changing it and then confronting the situation, and then having to, be in an uncomfortable situation, because it's just happening in front of us. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Delegate Green. Delegate Friesel, Deputy Speaker Friesel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first of all, let me correct what I think is an error in the statements here. I don't believe the Cape Cod Commission budget was reviewed by this committee. It was reviewed by the Economic Affairs Committee, not this committee. So this committee did not have any policy role with respect to the Cape Cod Commission in the last budget cycle. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. Secondly, we should all remember that this is a committee that recommends. It doesn't dispose of anything. So while this committee may make a recommendation to the Assembly, it's the Assembly that makes the final decision and disposes of this matter. And I don't think we should assume, because it isn't the case, as I've seen anyway, that a recommendation one way or the other from this committee is a slam dunk to be the way the Assembly votes. So the Assembly has its own independent mind after receiving the recommendation of this committee. As to the potential, we can think of a lot of hypotheticals here. I don't know if there's any perfect solution to this, but as for the deputy speaker being in the position of also potentially being the presiding officer, that's an unusual circumstance where we'd have a meeting of this committee, that ordinance coming up, and the speaker's not there. If that was really a situation that developed, it simply could be we could alter the agenda so that that particular item, which came before this committee, in which the deputy speaker participated, and the speaker isn't available, we could move it to another meeting when the speaker is available. So I don't think that we should think of all possible scenarios and try to structure it in some perfect way. I mean, there's no perfect way, but this seems to be at least a little more streamlined way. And I'll go back to one last point, which is policy versus procedure. If you look at what this committee is supposed to do, it says it right in the resolution. The committee may address matters relating to internal rules, procedures, and operations of the Assembly, as well as the organization of the Cape Cod regional government and relationships with other local, regional, Commonwealth, and federal government entities. So it is not a committee designed to deal with heavy-duty policy issues that come before us. Sure, something could arise like that, such as the ordinance on immigration, but it's an unusual situation. So I don't think the unusual, the rare, the maybe it could happen should govern how we develop the structure of this committee so that it deals with what will happen 99 out of 100 times. So because we're afraid of what might happen in the 1 out of 100 time. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I do appreciate the Deputy Speaker's comments. First of all, I want to clarify. I've had an issue with how the Cape Cod Commission's budget has been reviewed, and also how we've been following issues that we actually have to vote on that take many months, if not years, of process with the Cape Cod Commission, how we're involved with it. But leave that as it may. I thought that this committee would be a perfect location to review the commission's budget, because evidently they only want to be reviewed once by one committee. And I did have objections with it being reviewed by the Economic Affairs Committee. But that's my issue. And I agree with that. And I will, that I take that off the table. However, and I also appreciate that Deputy Speaker Friesel clarified what he did about an instance where there could be a conflict or an issue. So I'm fine with approving this. or recommending approval by the full assembly.
All right. Do we have any other delegates who would like to speak to this issue? If not, may I have a delegate actually put this on the floor? Delegate Gessen?
Apologies, Madam Speaker. I think I did have in my comments, if you don't mind, a question for you, Delegate Warner, just on your thoughts on, if we do change the composition of this committee, given, I know Delegate Frizzell addressed it somewhat, but if policy heavy things that could feasibly fall under this committee within the definition, which is pretty broad when it says any matter related. Let me see what it says. Organization of regional government and relationships with local regional Commonwealth and federal government entities, which is nearly everything we do. If you're thinking on, referring the immigration ordinance or similar ordinances would change, given the makeup of this committee, or if you're thinking in those referrals would really remain the same regardless of the composition change here.
I mean, we talked about this quite a bit. I think that one of the issues that we're trying to create is a commonness with all of our committees, and also a way to expedite things that we do get to each committee that doesn't get bogged down because we have too many people on the committee, and sometimes that happens. Because this committee itself apparently was never intended to be what it has developed into, some adjustments need to be made to make it work better within the context of the whole assembly. And I think that the fact that the deputy speaker might run this committee, it doesn't concern me. I mean, one of the issues is what happens if there's a tie? Well, the speaker breaks the tie. But right, isn't that right?
Well, there's going to be 5 members, so there can't be a tie.
Can't be a tie.
Yeah.
Can't be a tie.
But anyway, so your concern, as I understand it, Delegate Gessen, is that you think that it shouldn't handle the kinds of stuff that's been coming towards it?
Well, I guess my concern, and I know Delegate President mentioned, maybe we'll never see an issue like this again, or this policy heavy. But my concern is really right now, the immigration ordinance, as a prime example, came in front of this committee, really because this committee has a lot of committee chairs on it, and it's a contentious, policy heavy ordinance with implications from economic affairs to public services, et cetera. So like this committee provides a broad swath of perspectives on it, and that makes sense the way it's structured now, which is why the immigration ordinance came here. Versus in the future, if this committee is really just people that have been on the assembly the longest, it makes a lot less sense to my mind to have something like the immigration ordinance come in front of it when it really belongs in a policy heavy committee like economic affairs or public services. But I was wondering if you share that thinking at all, or if you think that there wouldn't be much of a change at all.
It's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. I mean, none of us expected the way that the other things that came to this committee was going to happen, and I can't. I mean, I'd like to say that I could be clear thought and find out that in the future we will have things like that, and it would be an interesting way to try to handle it. But I can't predict that. All I can do right now is look at it from the standpoint of how it is affecting the operations of the assembly in the context of the other committees and with the membership, and try to offer a solution that will move it ahead. And that doesn't mean that going forward there won't be opportunities to look at it again and perhaps make a recommended adjustment at that time. But it's clear that one needs to happen at this point. And so for that reason, I feel like this is a very straightforward and honest way to do it. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's how I look at it right now. Let's see. Owen Fletcher has his hand up for a while. Where is he? Okay. Go ahead, Clerk Fletcher.
Um, I have, if you don't mind, Speaker, I have something on that as we deal with our rules on this
Okay.
topic. Meaning we've got our own rules that we have, as well as Robert's rules is our source of parliamentary authority when things are not covered in our rules. And so I want, if you don't mind, people to give me one moment. So this is the manual of governance. And so this is, I believe, section 10. Referral to committee. Any item of business may be referred to committee for the following reasons. You say for study and report at a subsequent meeting, for the purpose of drafting an ordinance resolution, for the purpose of dealing with any matter with which the speaker determines may prove damaging to the reputation of a person. So that's our rule on referral. That's talking essentially, however, about about how things get referred by the full assembly. Um, the rule that we've basically been using the entire time I'm here, if people want to take a look, there's a rule that says, but before a meeting is adjourned at which a proposed ordinance is introduced, the Assembly of Delegates will determine the time and place at which the public hearing is to be held on consideration of the proposal, and whether by the Assembly or by a committee thereof. If the Assembly fails to make such determinations, the Speaker may do so. That's really what we've been using. And by the way, when we asked County Council whether we could even do a public hearing in committee, they said no, you probably shouldn't. The charter says in front of the full assembly, don't do that. That's really what speakers have been using to kind of put things where they need to go. And I know that there are delegates who are thinking about this and thinking about dealing with it. That was actually one of the reasons for the urgency to reform this committee, because there are rules that need to be discussed as we're changing the way that we operate. And it's not clear. But I mean, I think that if I might, the answer to the question that's come up is the speaker can't put something somewhere unless the whole assembly agrees with it. If somebody made a motion to refer it somewhere else or discharge it from committee, they could. And quite frankly, that we have a different customs here and different ways of doing things. But as we're legislating more, people are going to have to consider what they want. And so if delegates want the speaker to have that power on their own, they can formalize that. If they want something different, they can do that. But if a speaker puts something somewhere and the full assembly wants it to be discharged or moved somewhere else, under Robert's rules, you can do that, certainly. So, I mean, it's not something to be afraid of anyway. The majority will rule, and General Roberts' rules have been dealing with this for 200 years. So it's not something to be afraid of in the state of our current rules. We just have customs and ways that we've done things. So I hope that was helpful and not.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Clerk Fletcher. Let's see, now we're over to Deputy Speaker Frizel and then to Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to follow up, which I'm glad the clerk clarified that. It's important that we again remember that the committees don't have the authority people think they might. Okay? The assembly has the authority here, and people can exercise it in the assembly. And Delegate Gessen, I don't think you're not too shy about doing that, which is fine. I also just want to assure Delegate Gessen and anyone else that this is not some secret agenda. There's no intention here to create a super committee out of this. That's not the point. It's to hopefully streamline our operations to make us more efficient in our deliberations. And I'll go back again to what the charge or the structure of the resolution says. It's the organization. It first of all, it's for internal rules and procedures and operations of the assembly. And that's primarily what it's going to do. And it could do something with respect to the organization of Cape Cod Regional Government. So when I see those words, that means to me that if, for example, there's a proposal to reorganize some part of regional government, it might come to this committee as the place to study and report. And then it goes to the assembly for decision. So, it's just organizational, structural, procedural. That's the primary function of this committee. It's not to be some super policy committee sitting on top of all the other committees, some kind of monolith. That's not the intention. That's not the agenda.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker Frizel. That's exactly correct. Let me go over to Delegate Harder.
Hi. I don't know. I'm having problems with my camera. On this is the work computer, Ian, but it's the camera keeps going on and off. Anyway, you sort of Carl made that more confusing than. So you're saying that we're going to take people off this committee to streamline it, which I don't understand, which you just want 5 people on it, not 7, fine, whatever. But then you say it's going to be the committee that decides like how to structure government and how to structure the government that would go straight here and things like that. That does sound like you're trying to make a small little secret subcommittee that gets to make all the decisions. And I know it wouldn't be secret, but you're cutting people out and then adding to the agenda, adding to what they can and can't, what they can look at. I mean, like if I'm chair of economic affairs, if I want to have a committee meeting, I used to write an email to the speaker and say, I would like to have a committee hearing on this. So now, how are things going to work? I have to come to this committee to ask for a committee hearing.
No.
And then if it's something that's policy, if we come up with like a policy idea or a structure idea, do we have to come to this committee before we go to the assembly? Because then you're not explaining it, right?
No.
Because that's what I got.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Harder. Let's see if we can't straighten that out for you. Delegate Frizel, you're first, and let's see, Delegate O'Malley is second.
Well, I'm sorry if I created confusion. It's not at all what's intended. Things are going to pretty much operate the way they have, folks. I'm just trying to say to people, there's no secret agenda to somehow make this a super committee that's going to try to take on and take away policy decisions and policy recommendations from other committees where they've always been. There's no intention to do that. And I'm reading the words that have been in our manual for an awful long time. I'm not creating new words here. It's what this committee's charge has been for a long time. That's what it says. So I threw out the possibility. Organization of Cape Cod Regional Government means perhaps if there's a recommendation from some of the executive body that, or it's the assembly itself says, you know what, we ought to move this on the org chart. Org chart, that to me means organizational chart. So maybe that's something which this committee studies and makes a recommendation. But we're not going to take something that you've been dealing with in economic affairs, all along. And you don't have to come to us to ask for a hearing. I mean, you do business the way you've been doing business. So I'm afraid that there's been some, fears that have been put into this consideration that I just don't think are there. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Frizel. Delegate O'Malley.
Right. 2 comments. Number 1,
I don't think we're talking about doing this in order to simply streamline. I think the clerk's memorandum on this question, that reality that we have 7 people on this committee, if someone else from the assembly sits in and it somehow gets engaged in the discussion, we're up against a potential open meeting law violation. And I think that's the clear intent here, rather than some sort of just streamlining so to make all the committees have 5. I think the other piece, in terms of what it is we're going to focus on, is what was outlined in our manual, that section 10 that Clerk Fletcher just showed us. Basically, this committee would, it seems to me, be responsible for how we conduct the affairs of the assembly, how we organize ourselves, how we do our business, rather than the policy questions. This is concerned with the internal organization and functioning of this body. So to me, this is sensible.
Thank you, Delegate O'Malley. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this question? Go ahead, Delegate Gessen.
Madam Speaker, and thank you, Deputy Speaker Frizel, for your thoughts and answers on it. I think that more or less alleviates my concerns that I was raising. I think, it's really not much of a structural concern that I have, but it's more of what leadership's thinking is with this committee. And I feel pretty comfortable with what Deputy Speaker Frizel has said in terms of the intent behind winnowing this committee down, and also the fact that its subject matter is really going to remain with the matters that are expressly given to it. So apologies for maybe making this meeting a little longer than it was intended to be in the beginning, but I appreciate the thoughts and concerns. I think delegates here have kind of made their concerns and thoughts with this restructuring clear enough that leadership has enough to work with, and thank you very much for those answers. So I'll be voting in favor. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have something to offer or something to ask? All right then. May I have I guess somebody put something forward so we can vote on this?
I will move that we adopt proposed resolution 2026-04 that we approve it for recommendation to the full assembly.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Second from Dean Oman. Okay, Owen, Delegate or Clerk Fletcher, could we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker. Delegate Gessen?
Yeah.
Delegate Green?
Yes.
Delegate Harder?
Yes.
Delegate Killian?
Yes.
Dean Oman?
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley?
Yes.
Speaker Warner?
Yes.
That's unanimous, Madam Speaker.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Since there is nothing else on our agenda, again, I want to thank you all for making this meeting so quickly and for really thinking about it, and let's see how I think this will really help us moving forward. And there is never any intent here to have one committee over another or greater than another. So, I see Elizabeth Harder. Yes, Delegate Harder.
I'm just wondering if after the meeting, if Ian could stay on for a sec, because I'm on my county computer and the camera died and it won't tell me why.
I'll explain to you, Delegate Hurd, that happened to me 2 weeks ago, and Ian knows what that problem is, and it's not you, it's the system, and he can fix it pretty quickly. He did that for me.
Oh, okay.
Terrific.
I did you the
Solution.
favor of turning
Well,
the recording off. So.
Thank you for everyone for coming, and the meeting is adjourned.